Yo, everybody, welcome back. Episode 15, um, Judgment Day. That's what I'm going to call this one. Um, Feeling a little bit under the weather, so if I'm sniffling and not sounding great, just feeling a little bit under the weather this week. So, but we're going to power through. Wanted to sit here kind of like I did for March Madness and watch these rankings come out live, see where the teams are placed at, and give my opinion. Review the ginormous UFC card that we had last night, and also preview the NFL today. Once again, episode sponsored by Southern Cut Barbecue. Make sure you go check them out on Instagram. They provide quality food. Some of the best brisket I've ever had. So I definitely would go give them a follow. If you're looking to get some food off of them, go ahead and shoot them a DM. Tell them Bryce sent you. So, but without further ado, we got about 5 minutes before the selection show. Kind of recapping the games from yesterday. So Georgia is your SEC winner. A lot of people kind of predicted that. Everybody thought that Georgia would kind of get their get back. Georgia is the better team when you look at the two on paper. Probably the most surprising was, I would say, Indiana probably beating Ohio State. Indiana's the best team in the country right now. I said that a couple weeks ago. They looked really good. Their defense completely stopped Ohio State. Got some crucial fourth downs, especially the probably the biggest turning point in that game was the QB sneak that saying his knee touched the ground and they didn't end up picking it up. So once again left another score on the table. And then both, you can't really say that the missed extra point or missed field goal by Ohio State's kicker was that big because Indiana's kicker missed one earlier on in the game. So two missed field goals. Not really a turning point in that game. Indiana kind of just played their game, controlled the ball, controlled the tempo. Ohio State really couldn't get that vertical downfield threat with Tate and Smith that they've just been bombing people all year long. Couldn't really do that yesterday. Complete shout out to Indiana's defense. They played their balls off yesterday. Mendoza looks like he's going to win the Heisman. That's a huge accomplishment for him. Even though he's a little bit of a weirdo on the mic. But I mean, what a Cinderella story, Indiana, coming from. I mean, they've got. I think they're like either number one or number two in losses in college football history, and to have Sig come in 2 years ago, completely turn them around, playoff team the first year, and then the second year they win the Big Ten. And now they're the 1 seed in the college football playoff. That is very impressive. My two Indiana fan friends, Cole and Johnny, complete congrats to you guys. You guys have been through some tough times with Indiana football, but looks like it's kind of paying off for you guys because, I mean, you guys are now the best team in the nation, so to speak. But in other news, you had Duke winning the ACC, huge. We're probably going to sit here and see two G5s get in. And you also saw Bama, who I kind of glazed over earlier, kind of get taken behind the woodshed by Kirby and the Dogs and could potentially miss the playoffs. I don't think that happens. I think it's going to be one of Miami or Notre Dame, unfortunately, missing out. I just don't see the committee allowing no ACC teams in this. But other than that, you had, let's see, what other ones did we see yesterday? Texas Tech beats BYU again. No surprises there. Texas Tech looks like a top 4 team in the nation. But that pretty much covers your group or your Power 4 schools. So let's go ahead and add this to the stage, pull this up as we are getting ready to get into Judgment Day. And I'm a little nervous, not going to lie. Hopefully Notre Dame gets it done, but I don't know, man. It could get dicey. It could get real dicey. I'm a little nervous, but at the end of the day, should have won games earlier on in the year. That's the whole point of it. You win against Miami, you're in. You win against Texas A&M, you're in. And you unfortunately didn't get those 2 games done. So now you're sitting here on a day where you do not control your own destiny. I think that the committee is going to prove a point and kind of show that Notre Dame is going to have to join a conference before they even get mentioned in these playoffs with being able to choose their own schedule, essentially. Let's go ahead and add this. Here we go. Hasn't started yet. I don't know. I'm really hopeful that it's my okay. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be Indiana 1. I don't know if they are going to really penalize Ohio State for losing a close game. At the same time, I also don't know if they are going to allow Georgia to jump Ohio State. So at this time, I think it's going to be Indiana 1, probably Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, Texas Tech 4. Your 5 is going to be Oregon. Your 6 is going to be Ole Miss. Your 7 is going to be A&M. Your 8 is going to be Oklahoma. Your 9 is going to be Miami. Your 10, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think it'll be Notre Dame. And then the 11 is going to be Tulane. And then the 12 is going to be the James Madison Dukes, making their first playoff. Potentially, if they win, feeding into Curt Cignetti's former team, which would be very, very, very cool. I'd love to see that. And I don't know what ESPN's doing. We are ready to go. What's the holdup? Making some last-minute adjustments. I'm not sure why it hasn't. Well, if they don't want to let us watch, I guess we will go to Handy Dandy Twitter and see if anybody is going to go ahead and show it for us. Looks like everybody is pretty much kind of saying their last pieces, and then looks like we're going to roll into it. Here we go. Go ahead and put some sound on.
Head-to-head has been talked about. Well, now that the resumes are complete, it's time to bring Alabama into this conversation. 10-3 Alabama, who they lost to, how they lost yesterday. And so I can't wait to see how this committee brings Alabama and compares them with Notre Dame and Miami. That, to me, is fascinating.
Let's keep in mind some resumes were complete before yesterday. And let's keep that in mind. This is the first year I wanted to go 4. I thought it was great. I didn't want to go to 12. Then we went to 12, and I said, hey, man, this 12 was pretty doggone good. This is the first year I'd like to have more. Give me more. There are teams in this year's
and see, this is where I don't agree with what they're kind of talking about right now. I don't think that there should be 16, just because that there's only, like, if you keep expanding it, you're going to eventually want, it's like you give a mouse a cookie. You ask for 4, you get 4. You ask for 12, you get 12. You ask for 16, you get 16. Then you're going to ask for 24. Then you're going to ask for 32. Then you're going to ask for 64. And then it's just going to be entirely too long. And this is going to end up becoming like March Madness, which at the time, as a viewer, that'd be sick. But just in a logistical standpoint, that's too many games for football basketball, you can kind of do it because basketball is not really a contact sport, whereas football is all contact. And I just don't really love the idea of a 64 team, a 32 team, a 24 team, a 16 team. I think 12 is the perfect number. But I don't know. I don't want them to do that just because I think that it could really be a cause for concern. And let's hear Kirk Herbstreit talk about how Notre Dame is horrible.
And been part of this sport your entire life. What are your expectations and what level of controversy do you expect regardless of the decision that's made by the committee?
Good morning. Yeah, you guys are all over. Let's not forget Duke winning as well. So more than likely get an opportunity to see Tulane and JMU, more than likely, I would think, get into this thing. But I think how they handle BYU, BYU losing a bonus game, as Greg just alluded to, are they going to be punished for losing the second time to Texas Tech, therefore putting Miami right next to Notre Dame? That would give Miami the head-to-head that they've been clamoring about for weeks and weeks. That'd be the first time they'd be right next to each other. That would put Miami in. And I think, Boog, I'm with you. I think it's more of a Notre Dame-Alabama debate. I think that's probably what's given them the most headaches throughout the night and trying to figure out, well, Notre Dame has this eye test. They're playing really great football. Yeah, but Alabama went to Athens. They went to Athens and beat the same team they lost to in the bonus round. So, Greg, I think this not just the game, the way it went with Miami and Notre Dame, I just think Alabama, it'd be interesting to see how they handle that when it comes to that big data point of going to Georgia.
And let's just completely forget the fact that Miami loses to SMU and Louisville
yesterday, and Alabama winning in Athens.
Kirk, how would you evaluate these teams? Not just in terms of picking a winner, but like what would you value the most in evaluating teams who are close together and both have different points on their resumes or on their bodies of work?
Well, I just think if it's Miami and Notre Dame, I think the head-to-head finally at the end of this, when the dust settles, I think they're close enough that where the head-to-head comes into play. I think that's a significant data point that will give Miami the nod. That just based on the way they've taught us over these years. I think that if they're 2 or 3 spots away, I don't think head-to-head would come into play. But I do think if you get close enough, I think that's a pretty strong argument. Obviously, head-to-head should matter. Then I think with Notre Dame and Alabama, that's so difficult. I mean, and Joey's right. You could throw Texas into that argument, Vanderbilt into that argument. It's very, very tough how you separate those teams, because I think we all love how Marcus Freeman's team is playing on the field. How can you not? And then you could say, yeah, but who have they beaten during this 10-game winning streak? What really stands out? They went to Pitt, they beat USC, but is that enough when you still have that most significant thing to me? And I think, again, Greg alluded to it, going into Georgia. You could argue that's maybe the best win of the year across the entire country for any team. That's what, for me, I would be really struggling with. Eye test with Notre Dame against inferior opponents, or that impressive win by Alabama. I'll be very candid. Alabama's been leaking oil, in my opinion, during the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks.
Forget that Alabama lost to Florida State to begin the year.
When it comes to still, as there's
Notre Dame lost to Miami.
The entire season, the fact that they had one of the best wins in the country going into
best win, good win does not outbeat a bad loss, in my opinion.
Wins. Both of them will be better than Notre Dame's. There's no question. You watch.
Alabama Jones. I don't know what Alabama Jones says. It's something about Alabama.
Does, particularly on offense. Nick Saban is with us now, 7-time national champion. Nick, as you look at the end of the line here, what's the best way to evaluate teams when you have teams like Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, even Vanderbilt, Texas, BYU, who have things in their favor, but is not really as clear-cut? What would you do in terms of best evaluating these teams?
Well, I think it's very clear that there are 7 teams that have established themselves as the 7 best teams. And, even Oklahoma, to me, has an impediment. They had a tough time scoring points all year long. Notre Dame started out not so good, not great schedule down the line, but playing very well and from an eye test, looked like a great team. Then you got Miami, who finished strong but stubbed their toe in the middle. Then you got Alabama, who probably had the most impressive run in the middle of the season when they beat Georgia, and then beat 3 or 4 more ranked teams at the time, all in a row.
Tennessee,
And
Tennessee,
now
Mizzou don't
lately,
count, Nick.
for whatever reasons, and injuries are a part of the game, and you have to be able to overcome them. They're not playing as well as they did earlier in the season. And then you have arguments for people like Vanderbilt and Texas, and even maybe BYU, and the whole question of how does playing in a conference championship game really impact your season when other people are staying home, and how can they get pushed ahead of you because of that? So there's a lot of issues. Right now, if we had AI and they had all the information, they would have one hell of a time trying to figure out what this committee's got to figure out in terms of these last 3 or 4 teams.
You know, that's the point, Nick. I think there are going to be long-lasting ramifications no matter what they decide. What impact would it have on the conference championship game if Alabama's left out?
Oh, we're really going to draw this out until literally 11:45,
and Notre Dame,
and then we're going to be able to watch the NFL.
Look at them and say, well, you're not even. There's not even a possibility of playing in a conference championship game. But still, it's Notre Dame. You leave them out, and you also have evaluated the entire time of the rankings that you think they're better than Miami. So there are a lot of things to deal with. Now, 5 reporters in different places, different levels of controversy. Molly McGrath is with Duke, ACC champions there. This is probably a long shot. We've got Molly McGrath against Dana there, maybe looking for a spot in the playoff. But let's start with Marty Smith, where Alabama is probably most anxious today.
Here we go, Marty.
Indeed, Reese, good morning.
Indeed, Reese, good morning. We're going to go ahead and tell you that the Alabama Crimson Tide deserve to be in the playoff.
Strength of record, strength of schedule, FPI.
We played, they didn't. Kalen DeBoer. We also lost Florida State, who's horrible.
In all 3 of them right now. I just left Kalen DeBoer's office. He makes it very clear we should not be penalized for earning the right to play in the conference championship game.
You shouldn't be penalized for it unless you No, Marty. Not the toughest conference in the nation. Did you have the number 1 and number 2 playing each other? No. You SEC bias every single week, Marty. Stop it, Kalen DeBoer. Tennessee and Mizzou should not be ranked.
Is with the Irish.
Good morning, Marty. Yeah, here on campus, the Notre Dame players and coaches are gathering to watch the selection show. Their confidence is very high. They are confident in the resume that they put together. Those 2 losses at the beginning of the season, just by a combined 4 points to Miami and Texas A&M. They also think that those 10 wins that they strung together at the end of the season were dominant wins by an average of 30 points or more. That's best in the country.
Yeah, but who are you playing? Like you, just a few moments ago, gosh, Notre Dame. You're playing Stanford, NC State. You're playing bottom of the barrel teams. You got to play somebody better.
One of the elite teams in the country, and we deserve an opportunity.
I agree that we're one of the best teams in the country, but at the same time, when you don't play anybody after week 2,
with the Hurricanes.
Hi, Jen. Here in Miami, there is optimism and confidence based on what happened
should not
yesterday
be a debate. Okay.
in Miami's resume. But there's also frustration. In talking with Mario Cristobal earlier this morning, understanding why are we even having this debate? When you
because, Mario, you lost to Louisville at home in SMU.
Schedule, the identical metrics, the common opponents, and, of course, the head-to-head, which is really what matters against Notre Dame. And
yes, let's remember head-to-head, okay? Let's remember this, because Bama loses to Florida State to begin the year. Notre Dame loses to Miami to begin the year. This is a really good debate because what loss is worse? Yes, Alabama beat Georgia, but what loss is worse?
That one instance is this same instance of Miami and Notre Dame. While there is uncertainty here in Miami, there is elsewhere in the ACC as well, and that's where we find Molly McGrath in Durham.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Well, the Blue Devils had the day off
They're
today.
not even meaning to watch it. They know they're not in.
Overtime thriller in the ACC title game. But head coach Manny Diaz told his players to stay by their phones today just in case. So you're saying there's a chance. Diaz is watching.
I do think there is a chance. I mean, what happened? You beat the number 17 team in the nation. How far does that
because of their strength of
press you up?
And JMU's lack of a Power 4 win, whereas the Blue Devils just beat a top 20 team that had 1 foot in the playoffs. So I'm interested, Dana, how confident are they over there at James Madison?
Well, Molly, how dare Reese to pit us against each other? But there's certainly some extra emotion from Coach Bob Chesney, who made it official yesterday.
Oh yeah,
that he
Kenny
will be the
Chesney,
new
American
head coach
Kids.
at UCLA. He did confirm if James Madison hears their name called this afternoon, he will coach this team through the playoff berth. And while no official
Celebrated
watch party
Sun
was
Belt
held
title with a
Saturday
pizza
night
party
ahead of
following the
ACC
11 a.m.
championship game,
Eastern team
star
meeting.
running back
Hell yeah.
Wayne Knight did storm
Hell
the
yeah,
quad on
we had us a
campus
dang
after
pizza
Duke
party.
was announced as the ACC champion.
Dude,
And in this
what is
morning,
ESP?
Bob
Why?
Chesney
What?
stating his
You don't
case,
need to
Reese
put
saying we're
that
the
in
best
there.
group
Who
of college school,
cares?
and it's not
Nobody
even
cares
close.
that you won the Sun Belt and you had a
Then
pizza party.
figuratively speaking on that, pitting you against one another. Just the teams.
Oh, let's see the
That
principles.
One man stormed the quad.
Unavailability of key players and coaches that may have affected past performances or likely will affect postseason performance.
These
Ole
are the
Miss.
selection principles for the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Strength of schedule, head-to-head. Mario Cristobal's been pointing to that one. Comparative outcomes against common
Yes, we know,
opponents.
Reese. Mario
Miami's
Cristobal
pointing to that
has been
against
sitting
Alabama,
here
compared to
shoving
Florida
our
State
heads through the
games.
wall
And
about head-to-head.
unavailability of key players and coaches may have affected
Oh,
past performance
Lordy.
or postseason performance. An interesting
Reese,
note
shut
there
up. Just give me the
because of
results.
Whoever winds up in the field, you're going to have at least half of the teams who will be without either their head coach or their head coach is moving on, or an offensive defensive coordinator or assistant head coach, associate head coach moving on.
You know who hasn't
Over
left?
half the field.
Notre Dame.
No matter how it
We
comes
got everybody.
out. In some cases, both coordinators are going. Oregon's going to be in. Both coordinators are going to be on the move. Still coaching now. I get that, but you know. When you should be the most united is when you are the most distracted. Never distracted is Heather Dinich, who covers the college football playoff for us. So, Heather, and I'm not trying to absolve the committee. This is the business they've chosen. They've signed up for this. This is going to be a very controversial decision, no matter what they decide. What's it been like in the committee room?
It's been tense. Look, they met until 2:30 in the morning local time with
Oh, these guys are
most of
drunk.
their focus,
Oh,
debate,
Lord.
and discussion focusing on those three
We got a bunch of
teams,
geezers who are just
Alabama, Notre
sitting
Dame,
here
and Miami. But
sipping
it is important
wine.
to remember the context
Look at all
of this
these-
season, how they've
what?
talked about them. While everyone outside
Everybody's got a
the
computer,
room
and
is
we've also got a
focusing on the
monitor in front of
head-to-head
everybody.
between
What
Notre
in
Dame
the
and
world?
Miami. In the room this season, they've been focused on Alabama and Notre Dame. So the way
Great.
Alabama played in the SEC championship game against Georgia
Notre
very
Dame's not in.
poorly opens the door for
It's
debate. They
what
will
we're learning.
certainly consider dropping Alabama, but how far? Miami needs them to drop to number 11. If that happens, Miami and Notre Dame are in, no matter what you think about the head-to-head. But they will also consider the fact that Alabama has the best strength of record, the best strength of schedule, and the best win of those three teams going on the road, beating Georgia, which is now the SEC champs. So they are considering all of those factors, but it also wouldn't surprise me because of the Alabama-Notre Dame angle if they flip those two again.
We will keep an eye on it. In fact, we're going to have answers shortly. I'm told that the rankings have come our way, and we will fill out the bracket. That means for a moment that Zach, our graphics operator, is the most powerful man in college football because they have to give it to Zach in order to type it up.
I like it.
So he knows.
See if I can text Zach.
Yes, Zach, what you got? No. We'll see them when you do. Rankings unveiled after this.
College Football Playoff Selection Show is presented by AT&T. Connecting changes everything.
Notre Dame, just join the ACC and just roll all these teams, please. Like, I'm so sick and tired of this. Every single year, Notre Dame, join a conference. Notre Dame, join a conference. Also, no free ad play. We ain't watching this. No free ads. Till Dish Network, Apple, or ESPN decides that they're going to sponsor this. But, oh, Lord. You want to know what it all boils down to? Let me just pull it up. This is what it all boils down to. This is what it all boils down to. Let me just go ahead and pull it up since everybody wants to literally sit here and talk about it. This one man right here, because you dropped the ball, you have changed the course of this season. We lose to Miami, yes. We go to South Bend, have a chance to beat Texas A&M, and you drop the ball. And you single-handedly allow this game to not go into overtime because you have one job. After we took your sorry ass back, after you decided to leave, we took you back and gave you a spot on this team. And you have one job, to hold the ball for a place kicker. And you dropped the ball on an extra point. And this is why we are sitting here having this debate. We're not going to talk about the misholding call. We're going to talk about the fact that you left it into the hands of the officials to call a holding because you couldn't hold on to the damn football. Now, I'm going to pull up a line from one of my favorite movies. Son, if you can't hold on the damn fork, you can't hold on to the damn football. You clearly can't hold on the fork because you couldn't hold on to the damn football. So, Tyler, it's time. It's time. It's time to hold up some accountability, son. We make the playoffs. You ain't holding the ball. You're going to be holding a sign on the side of the road that says, please employ me. It's the last I'm talking about it. Horrible. Just horrible. Oh, we got some chats. Hang on. Just give me 1 second here. We're going to pull this back up. Indiana winning the Diddy Bowl. Oh, Lord. So this is what we're calling the national championship, is the Diddy Bowl? I don't know. I don't know right now who I think is winning it. I think Indiana's got a really good shot. But I don't know. I don't know. Oh, God. Here we go. Here we go, boys.
That is where the national championship game will be played. 12 teams in the field, the 5 highest ranked conference champions, no matter which conference they come from, and then the next 7 highest ranked teams after that will make up the 12 teams. So Zach, our graphics operator, has everything ready to go. So let's start with the number 1 team in the final college football playoff rankings. It is the Big Ten champion, Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana number 1 for the first time in school history.
And there wasn't an easier call made today than Indiana number 1. And my vocabulary is not deep enough to say what I think of what Cignetti has done at Indiana in the past 2 seasons. Last season, it was sort of like, okay, Indiana's a pretty good team. It's a 1-year run. And then to come back and do what they did in this season, they hadn't won the Big Ten since 1967. This football team is legitimate. I didn't understand how good they were on the defensive side and what they did in that game against Ohio State.
This is their first outright championship since 1945. Wow. Just this year, they got out of the cellar for the losingest team in the history of the sport. And now they go into this playoff number 1, the Cignetti turnaround. With all due respect to
they do put Ohio State at 2. Interesting.
Turnaround in college football history. Ohio
I didn't know if they would
Indiana
flip Georgia.
Spot. So the last 2 national champions have been from the Big Ten, and 1, 2 will again be from B1G.
And I think Ohio State little bit of question. Would it be Georgia at 2? Would it be Ohio State at 2? Either way, I don't think you can really go wrong. Ohio State's looked dominant all season long. They did not play well offensively last night. They struggled in protection. Julian Sayin missed some throws, and they missed a chip shot field goal that would have potentially pushed that game into overtime. And the committee has looked in the past at, hey, good loss, close loss, we're not going to crush you for it. They don't in the case for the Buckeyes as well, and I think it's probably makes a lot of sense to have them at 2.
Now, we've talked about this quite a bit. Remember, this is different from last year, the first year of the 12-team field, when you had the 4 highest-ranked conference champions getting the byes. Now it's just 1 through 4.
Come on, Reese, quit yapping.
So you have 2 Big Ten teams at the top of the bracket. At number 3, we presume, will be SEC champion Georgia, and it is. The Bulldogs avenged their regular season loss to Alabama with an impressive performance in Atlanta yesterday.
Without a doubt. And we came into this thing, I was talking about identity. And when it comes to identity, no one knows who they are more than the Georgia Bulldogs. They are a physical team, and they'll take you to the phone booth. And if you can't deal with them in the phone booth, you got no shot of beating them. Controlling the line of scrimmage. They held Alabama to -3 yards rushing. Hello. And you talk about
they didn't have the top 2 leading rushers
throughout the season. And the defense was young early on, but they're seasoned veterans now. I don't think anybody wants to see this version of the Bulldogs.
Somebody's going to, but you'll have to win a game to get there. Remember, last year Georgia got a bye, didn't work out well for them. Notre Dame beat them in the Sugar Bowl. They'll try to put together a better run this time around. Number 4 in the final bye, meaning not getting a home game. And this is the only bad thing about Big 12 champion Texas Tech. Man, Lubbock would have been
not getting a home game
on campus, but the Red Raiders, Big 12 champion,
I was like, what?
Conference championship since 1954.
It's not a game at home.
And the Red Raiders are seeded 4th, and there they are in Lubbock celebrating what Joey McGuire and company have done.
Yeah, and what they were able to do is beat BYU again. They forced
that a surprise for them? They think that they weren't going to get the 4?
Came back and did one better, force 4. That defense against BYU was outstanding. That is a football team. We talk about their offense. Their defense is about as good as we've seen in the country.
So Texas Tech goes in, and you know what? I believe with that defense, they can make a run. I'm not going to be shocked
especially
to see them in the national championship.
That front 4, how they get after the quarterback.
No doubt. We have David Baylor, Mello Hyde in the middle, Lee Hunter, defense, and Jacob Rodriguez, best linebacker in the country, might be a Heisman Trophy finalist, if not winner. Now, team that has a home game, seeded number 5.
Oregon.
The Oregon Ducks. So 3 of the top 5 teams in the country.
So I misspoke earlier. I'll take that back. I thought that the 5-12 would lead into the 1.
And I just love when he comes to Oregon.
That's incorrect. So they'll play JMU. Probably. Maybe Duke.
Best tight end in America.
Woo-wee.
Physicality they exude. Another team that understands
Anybody
what
else
their
nervous?
identity are.
No? Good, just me.
Haven't
All right.
always played up to their par throughout the season, but they're starting to click on all cylinders, and it's going to be a tough ask. Whoever has to go to Eugene and deal with the Ducks at Alton.
And I think this upcoming numbers, the first one where there could be some drama at 6, because you look at it, all assuming that 11 and 12 are going to be G5 teams that won their conference. 6 versus 7 is potentially significant when you take into account what your first-round matchup might be. So will it be Ole Miss like it was last week, or will it be A&M who dropped big time after the loss to Texas?
Greg, that is a tremendous setup because it plays a huge role in who your first-round opponent is, and it is Ole Miss. Pete Golding's team now seeded 6. They'll
potentially get another Ole Miss Georgia matchup. That'd be cool.
That which will be one of the last 2 highest-ranked conference champions.
And Oxford is going to be buzzing down there. Good for Pete Golding. He's now the permanent head coach. Lane Kiffin, the coach at LSU, allowed the OC Charlie Weiss Jr. to come back and call.
Strength of schedule 41st. Oh my God! But isn't the SEC the best conference in the world?
They feel really good about what they have now in Oxford, Mississippi.
So Ole Miss will have a home game, the biggest game in the history of
so Texas A&M at 7.
The Grove will be buzzing.
It will be. Yeah. They will win the party, and they'll try to win the game. Another home game, seeded 7. Gig'em. Mike Elko's
All right, here we go.
lost its regular season finale at Texas, kept them out of the SEC championship game. Good consolation prize, home game with the winner getting Ohio State.
And I got to be honest, if I'm A&M, I have a bit of a gripe, frankly, because A&M, you look at their strength of schedule play, they're sitting there at 16. They're sitting 1 spot behind Ole Miss, whose strength of schedule resides at 41. You can say, well, the best win for Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Well, They went to Notre Dame and knocked off the Irish, who might be a top 10 team in the college football playoff team as well. So the first disagreement I have so far, but still A&M, excellent football team. It'll be a difficult matchup for everybody.
And then the final team to get a home game in this year's college football playoff, Oklahoma. Now, the Sooners have struggled mightily on offense. Their defense is tough, and we have 3 SEC home games.
And you mentioned the offense. I don't know that I've seen a team in the past few weeks that have defensively made plays when they need to, whether it's a blocked field goal, whether it's a pick six. When their offense has been struggling, the defense has stepped up and made plays, created opportunities to make it easier on their
Come on, let's go.
They have a chance to make a run, but their offense has to get better.
Okay, these are the teams that have the home games, and while I agree with Greg, there's a lot that you could dispute about Ole Miss and Texas A&M and the order there. This was the relatively easy part for the committee. Okay, now, because of what we mentioned again, I just want to emphasize this. I'm not trying to talk to everybody like they're kindergartners, but just remember, 2 more conference champions have to go into the field. They are highly unlikely to be ranked in the top 12, so they're going to displace 2 teams in the rankings. So that means there are only 2 spots left. These are the contestants. Alabama, which lost in the SEC championship game, and the much ballyhooed debate between
Oklahoma, Bama,
and Miami. So, number 9, who will go to Norman to take on Oklahoma?
Fuck.
And it's Alabama who didn't move. Maybe the game that had Alabama sitting on the bubble, they'll get a chance to.
Notre Dame's not going to make it. Dang it, man. Ah, that stings.
Saw it going in this direction already with Ohio State being 2. A team
that stings, that stings, that stings.
Game. They weren't overly
They did it to us, man.
Just one spot and flipped
they gave us the
behind them to acknowledge the head-to-head. I think they clearly drew conclusions about Alabama based on a 12-game sample size. And that's the way it should be evaluated when you take into account the teams they were being evaluated against had just 12 data points to evaluate. So Alabama needing to get back on track offensively, need desperately to get healthy. But they have an opportunity, like you said, Reese, to avenge that regular season loss.
But, you know, I will say this.
Just give it to us, Reese. Just give us Miami at the 10.
Overly punitive for a conference championship game. But if you're going to play them, they need to have stakes. Both ways.
Notre Dame first out. That stinks.
They have to count somehow. And we're talking about Alabama maybe having the best win in the sport by going to Athens. They also have one of the worst losses by losing to Florida State. So we just cannot erase that. I'm surprised at this move right here.
Okay, but the one thing, we'll have time for this. You have to define loss. By record, absolutely. If you go by power rankings, Florida State's still top 30. I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just saying all of these things factor in and try to define them. So now we're down. We're basically back where we started. There's one spot left in terms of at-large teams, and it almost certainly is going to be Miami or Notre Dame. So number 10, and it is Miami without playing.
Wow.
Without playing on the final Saturday. Notre Dame had been ranked ahead of them the entire time. And now they flipped them, Joey.
Yeah, this is very strange to me. And again, Reese, you mentioned earlier that they hadn't compared these 2 teams. Well, why not? They're humans, and they should have absolutely compared these 2 teams. We had a ranking come out on Tuesday. If they were going to flip these 2 teams that did not play, they should have done it on Tuesday. Now, this Miami team, the way they're playing the last few games, they are a very good football team. They have a chance to win just like any other team. But it is strange to me that you have 2 teams that were sitting on the couch yesterday that somehow flipped in their rankings.
I would just say, and then I'll let you make your point, Booger. There's not a lot of difference in terms of the entire body of work if you're looking at the analytics. Notre Dame's a little bit higher in FPI, which is a forward-looking measure. They're basically the same everywhere else.
So here's the thing, to the point. We do this week in and week out. And it's a beauty pageant. Now that the season is done, it's a resume contest. And so it's very easy to go back and compare these 2 teams when it comes to the resume contest, because now the head-to-head has to come into effect.
Their resume didn't change from Tuesday.
I know, but everybody's resume is complete from the standpoint of
their resume was already complete. But today doesn't change their resume. It was complete when we had the ranking on Tuesday. And so if we're going to make sense of this, as we're trying to watch it play out, if you wanted to make sense, then make sense. If the resume was done on Tuesday, and on Tuesday Notre Dame was a better football team, and the resume has not changed a lick. 2 teams were sitting on the couch. Somehow that flip.
Dude, there was one team between them and BYU that lost. It's now moved back. Now, if they're right next to each other, we're assuming BYU's moved back. We don't know that for certain.
Yeah, but Greg, it's true. But the way they do it, it's in larger groups. They should have already been compared. I don't differ with the decision.
Correct.
But now nothing. I agree with Joey. Nothing's changed.
But everybody's resume is now done, and at that point,
their resume was already done.
But the entire season is now done, and now we have to compare the head-to-head, guys, and that's what rules.
It should have been. And they should have gone back and watched it like I did, and I think several others did. When you watched that game, it might have been a 3-point margin. It felt like
what
more.
makes you think they didn't?
They did. I think they absolutely
did. They probably did.
So they probably did.
Now this is obviously the most hot button topic.
Well, let's see what else is. Let's see who else makes it.
2 more teams waiting.
Oh, we got 2 more.
Hey, we've got 2 more conference champions to get in. You have to have 5. So the 4th highest ranked conference champion, number 11, is Tulane.
Tulane. Okay, let's. Now this is the one that I was worried about.
Ole Miss won by 5 touchdowns in the regular season. They played Tulane.
Sure, they already played Tulane.
Had a terrific season, but the Green Wave at their watch party in New Orleans, and there they are. John Summerall, before he heads off to be the head coach of Florida, will coach his team throughout the playoff. And how about that? There's another little twist on this matchup. John Summerall is going to Florida. Pete Golding's now permanent head coach, but Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin.
You mentioned the 5 touchdowns. We also saw Duke in Virginia. It was a rematch last night, and Duke came out. Duke lost by 17, I think, the first time. So just because it was a blowout the first time doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a 5 touchdown. John Summerall is a good coach. I think he'll have his team ready to play.
Okay, let's go to the last spot, the team that will go to Eugene to take on Oregon. And it is?
Oh, it is James Madison. So congrats, dude. That's awesome. 2 G5s.
And it's the ACC champion not making it is a little bit alleviated by the fact that they got a large team in the field, and the streamers are flying at James.
Yeah, I figured. I said that before the show started. That
and good for them too. If you watch that football team, they are a.
Said this before the show, like we started watching the selection show. That I think that with there being no ACC champion in the playoff, that. Or ACC champion in the playoff, that they could potentially just put Miami in there, so then they get some representation from a conference. But I don't know. It stings. Yeah, there's Notre Dame as the first team out. Let's hear what they're saying.
For them, after being in the field pretty firmly until last week and sitting on the bubble and then getting bumped. Second team out is BYU. Their only 2 losses, both to Texas Tech, both decisively. Kalani Sitake has an excellent team, but the committee deems not quite enough to make it into the field. Notre Dame is a team that is on the outside looking in. It is a team that I know Kirk Herbstreit joins us again now. Kirk, I thought Notre Dame, if you just looked at the tape, if you just watched them play, one of the 5 best teams in college football right now. So, Kirk, let's start with you, as Nick and Chris Fowler have joined us as well. What's your reaction to what you just saw?
Like we talked about before they released the rankings, I think, again, it became a debate between Miami and Alabama. I think they got the nod. I think Miami and Notre Dame, I think the head-to-head that Joey's talking about, one of the things that I think is interesting based on what we've always been trained is, and I know the Tuesday night show creates some drama, and it creates a lot of heartache and headache for a lot of people to understand, but they really don't feel that their rankings are true until they get all of the data in. And with BYU losing a second time convincingly, even though Miami didn't play, Notre Dame didn't play, that put BYU behind Miami. And now head-to-head matters because they're right next to each other. And even though they weren't on the field last week, it's hard to justify how could a team go by when neither team played. They would tell you in that room that we needed all the games played, all the games finished. And now we can see that Miami and Notre Dame were next to each other. And last week has nothing to do in their minds with this week and their final rankings. So it's not like the AP poll where every single week we follow and react to what happened. This is, to me, a mistake and misleading because of having these Tuesday night shows.
Yeah, I just do not like that. The fact that they should have already been ranked ahead of us. Yeah,
well,
I agree with
had
Kirk.
2 tough losses in games they controlled against SMU and Louisville and gave them both away. there had to be some kind of reaction from the committee and a punishment from the committee. But Miami did what they needed to do. They kept climbing the ladder, getting close enough. They did their job on the field. And eventually, even though they didn't play, Notre Dame didn't play, the committee felt that with BYU's second loss to Texas Tech in convincing fashion, they should go beneath Miami. And again, that's where the head-to-head mattered, and that's why they ended up flipping Miami and Notre Dame.
Kirk, I'm going to talk to Hunter Yurachek about this, but in their protocol for ranking teams, the head-to-head should have mattered. It doesn't mean it has to be exclusively the most important thing. It doesn't mean that they have to put Miami in front. All I'm saying is that I don't think we should create the idea that they couldn't really consider it until they were right beside each other. That's not really how their protocol is set up. I want to go to Nick here. Nick, you see how this has turned out. What's your reaction to this decision and how the playoff rankings look?
Right. I think the fact of the matter is all three of those teams should have gotten in and deserve the right to play, in the college football playoff. And for years now, we have kept tweaking the criteria of how we select teams to be in the playoff, whether it was a 2-team BCS, whether it's a 4-team playoff, and now 12-team playoff. But really, I think that you're going to have 2 teams in the playoff, no disrespect to the group of 5, that are nowhere near ranked as highly as some other teams that are much better than them. And I think that maybe something that we can learn from this, because, to me, this has got to be devastating for Notre Dame's team, not to get an opportunity to play in the playoffs, that we can learn something from this that will help us come up with a little better criteria of trying to make sure we get the best 12 teams in the playoff. And
I just don't know how you do that.
Address this whole idea of conference championship games, and also the tiebreakers that get you in the conference championship game in each conference has a significant impact, on what happens in this whole thing. So I don't think there was a good answer for all this. I'm happy for the teams that got in, and I think the committee did a really good job. I just think there was one team left out that I just don't think should have been left out some kind of way, but there was no way around it.
To Nick's point, just to illustrate that, Miami lost out on a tiebreaker, 5-way tie for second place in the ACC. Had they played in the ACC championship game, since they were the highest ranked team, they would have either won their way in. It would have created another at-large spot instead of having 2 teams from the group of 5 if they had won, or they would have lost, and we wouldn't have had this controversy. Chris Fowler with us now. Chris, you've watched this for years. We've both covered this sport a long time. I think this is probably as controversial
Herbstreit's gone.
and difficult a decision as we've had in the entire playoff era.
Oh, that's funny.
I agree, Reese. This is a bracket that's going to be talked about forever, really, and not just because.
The first time you ever see 2 G5,
because of the framework that created the choices the committee had to make. And Nick talks about tweaks. There was a tweak after last season, what people didn't like about it. There's going to be something more than a tweak, I think, going forward, because all of a sudden, inclusivity, which most people in the sport think is a pretty good idea. Even Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the deepest conference, thinks that you can't have group of 5 conferences play and have it mean absolutely nothing the entire season if there's not a possibility of getting in the CFP. So inclusivity sounds good until like Notre Dame and Texas and Vanderbilt get squeezed out. Then people have a serious problem with it. But this is one we're going to talk about for a long, long time. If you're Notre Dame, you're crushed. They were worried about this. I know they projected confidence. There was a lot of unease on the part of Marcus Freeman and others because they saw them drop last week, and now in consecutive weeks without playing, they have dropped in the rankings, and it ends up costing them despite a 10-game winning streak to finish the season. Having said that, I have no problem with Miami getting in based on a head-to-head, even though it was early in the season. They won that game at the line of scrimmage, held perhaps the best player in the sport, Jeremiah Love, who could win the Heisman, will certainly be there as a finalist in New York on Saturday, to 33 yards on 10 carries. So that was real. It was a late field goal that won it, but it still matters, and I think has to matter, or there's no incentive to schedule any kind of meaningful non-conference game. That's not the committee's job to protect that, or the committee's job to protect with a sentimental eye conference championship games, but those are also in danger, as we know, going forward.
We said on game day Saturday, Roy Kramer, who was the architect of the SEC championship game, just passed away over this past weekend. It's one of his greatest contributions to the sport, but so much has changed. Maybe that's about to change as well because of these ramifications. Sometimes there's more risk involved than reward. Nick, what's your reaction to all of this?
Well, there's one thing I wanted to add, and Chris kind of made it a point about the tweaking in the future. Is I think you have 10 teams that are getting evaluated on one set of criteria in this year's polling, and you have 2 teams that are getting in the playoffs evaluated on a whole different set of criteria based on 5 conference championships, the highest 5 conference championships getting in. And I think some kind of way we've got to bring that to balance, that we shouldn't be evaluating teams in the playoff with a different set of criteria, which is definitely the case the way it had to be done this year, the way things worked out.
And conferences, in many respects, aren't even really conferences anymore. They're sort of scheduling conglomerates or associations as well. Kirk, as you've looked at this, had a few more minutes to think about it, what else are you thinking in terms of this decision, potentially having thresholds for conference champions to get automatic bids? What are your thoughts?
I think Chris and Coach bring up a couple really good points. JMU and Tulane getting in, I don't think anybody has a problem with a group of 5 teams getting in. I do think that it would be great if there was some kind of ceiling for them to have to, or some kind of barometer for them to have to get up to be able to qualify to get in. Because you do, at the end of the day, what they told us at the beginning of this is we want the best 12 teams in this. And I'm not saying JMU and Tulane won't prove to maybe be some of the 12 teams, but we have Notre Dame and Vandy and Texas sitting at home, and the years that they had and what they went through this year. It'd be great if we had 16 teams. Maybe that's the next answer. Let's get this thing up to 16 teams and see what we can do. But I think at the end of the day, conference championships, when you look at Alabama and you look at Notre Dame, having to play that extra game for Alabama, the way that game was looking, 21-0, which direction was this going to be? An embarrassment for Alabama? I don't know. Maybe that would have been different, but playing in that extra game, looking at what Notre Dame had been through, I think they played 4 teams, Power 4 teams with 4-8 record or worse. As they looked at them side by side, I think playing in that bonus game, end of the day, did not hurt Bama. And
it shouldn't hurt them.
That precedent. I think Greg mentioned that earlier.
Kirk, that's interesting. We brought this up on game day Saturday, that if you looked at the paper, the data, the metrics, you probably favored Alabama and Oklahoma for that matter. And maybe if you watched the tape, you leaned a little bit more to Notre Dame and Miami in terms of the way they've looked in recent days. Guys, thanks. We'll keep an eye on this. Of course, all these guys be heavily involved in the college football playoff once we start playing. But until we start playing, there's still some time to break all of this down. I think it's a really good concept to have thresholds for everybody to meet, whether that's ranking, whether that's computer metric or something, because you have teams that are going to be ranked near the bottom of the rankings that are displacing teams higher. Now, that may be okay a little bit. I don't know if it's top 20, if it's top 16, if it's top 12. But it seems like some type of threshold is probably what's going to happen in the future.
It does, because we tried to create an exception to include the group of 5. And I think to your point earlier, Joy, we have teams on the sideline that absolutely could win a championship right now. No one in America, aside from JMU or Tulane, think that JMU or Tulane can win a championship this year. Like, that's the matter of fact. But they're in it because we had to include them based on the parameters that we were given. And I think that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. I don't know what those thresholds could be, but we're trying to include teams to make them a part of this, when I think everyone knows that, they're good, but can they play with the big boys on a year in and year out? I don't know if that's the case, and I think that's what's going to rub Notre Dame, Texas, and Vanderbilt, because they could absolutely get hot and win it this season.
I agree with you, and I don't think I have as big a problem with JMU and Tulane getting in as a lot of people will. Do we believe they could win it? Absolutely not. I think they should be included. I don't know what the fix is to make people feel better, but in a season, and this is the first time we've seen this, the first time it's happened where 2 of them got in.
Right.
And so in this season, they got in. I'm happy for JMU. I'm happy for Tulane, and I'm okay with that. The big boys had their opportunities. You always look back through these seasons. We've all done it. We've all played. And you look back in your season and say, man, if we wouldn't have lost that game right there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
If we didn't get knocked off right here, we wouldn't be in this conversation. Handle your business, and we're not talking about JMU and Tulane getting in. They got in. That's how it is. We'll tweak it. I don't know what the fix is.
Well, the thing is, I do want to point out that I'm talking about best practice for the future. Under the current rules, I've got zero problem.
Yeah,
with doing it. Absolutely. No problem whatsoever. The question becomes, is this best practice? Our conference championship game
Totally
best
fair.
practice anymore?
I think one thing we can do to just immediately fix it is take a good deep dive into tiebreaker scenarios for all these conference championship games. Because guess what? If Miami right now is playing as a conference champion participant, and they win that game last night against Virginia, we don't have this conversation. Notre Dame's in 2, and we don't have JMU, which to me, I think would make some sense. That's what we got to fix first. We have bloated conferences. We have 18 teams in the Big Ten. It worked out this year in the Big Ten. The 2 best teams were playing in the conference championship game. Was that the case in the SEC? Maybe, maybe not. Was it the case in the ACC? Absolutely not. Was it the case in the Big 12 this year? Yes. I think we need to look at how we're sending teams to the conference championship before we start to rip up the conference championship automatic berth. Because if we can just get the 2 best teams that are ranked from a metric standpoint, from a BCS standpoint, use the computers. I don't care. Use Sagarin ratings. I could care less. Take the 2 best teams in every conference, rank them accordingly, and those top 2 are the ones that are playing for the title as opposed to all these confusing tiebreaker scenarios.
Again, too, congratulations to Duke. They get the trophy.
Absolutely.
But a 5-loss team being in your conference championship game created a lot of this. Herbie, my friend Herbie was waving his finger over there. Herbie, you wanted something you wanted to add here right quick before we talk to Hunter Yurachek and look at a bracket here?
Yeah, I love hearing when you got trying to spin us forward like what the answer is. And I think what all of us want is whether it's 12 or hopefully eventually it gets up to 16, is just whether it's computers and committee, a mixture of that, whatever the answer is. I just think at the end of the day, you rank them, whatever their conference affiliation is, throw that out, have 5 automatic qualifiers. And then from after that, just whatever it is, 1 to 16. If you get up into that ranking, you're in. If you're outside of it, you're out. There's no, what about this? Should we get this? It's just whatever the ranking is. That would be a beautiful future. Just to go back to what Coach Saban said.
I don't know if I necessarily agree that.
And however we get there subjectively, like I said, if it's a mixture of committee with computers, Sagarin ratings, whatever it is, just come up with a way to just rank them and not worry about, well, we've already got too many from this conference. We don't have enough from this conference. Whatever the rankings are, just
I do think it should be the 12 best, but I also think that
the best teams in.
I don't know. I don't love the G5 thing because until they win, until they win a game,
All right, I mean, it's a fair point for the future, but the good thing is at some point in this show, we're going to just put this to the side, get fired up about the games. We still got some ground to cover in that regard, but right now, want to show you how the games are set up and where the bowl games will be.
All right, well, let's look at this. So Oregon's going to beat JMU. I think.
Opportunities as
Ooh,
well.
I think Bama gets their lick back against Oklahoma, and then I think Ole Miss, and then I think A&M probably beats Miami. A&M Ohio State would be a banger game. Ole Miss Georgia would be a banger game. Indiana wipes the floor with Bama. Oregon Tech would be a banger game. Like this is the whole thing. Like, yeah, it stinks Notre Dame's not in. Would we probably beat Texas A&M in a rematch? Probably. But at the same time, we probably, I don't know, maybe we don't beat Ohio State. But, like, I think you're going to have, I think Texas A&M could potentially beat Ohio State in a neutral site. I think it's going to be, right now, just looking at it, how it is, I think Tech beats Oregon. I think Indiana beats Alabama. I think Georgia beats Ole Miss. I think A&M beats Ohio State. Then you're going to have A&M Georgia. I think Georgia wins that. Indiana Tech. I think Indiana probably wins that. Indiana Georgia. I think you might look at an Indiana national championship or Georgia national championship. Either one. That game would be really good. But I think that those are the 2 best teams in the nation. Let's hear what
Notre Dame. Neither team played. Every single ranking up to this point, you had it the other way. Why, without benefit of another game being played, did this change?
Maurice, first and foremost, the debate I hear you guys having in my ear in the studio, I'm sure it's been debated over the last 12 hours. And that was the debate we had in our committee room into the early morning hours. And then again, as the sun was coming up. And the first move in that was we felt like the way BYU performed in their championship game, a second loss to Texas Tech in a similar fashion, was worthy of Miami moving ahead of them in the rankings. And once we moved Miami ahead of BYU, then we had that side-by-side comparison that everybody had been hungering for with Notre Dame and Miami. And you look at those two teams on paper, and they're almost equal in their schedule strength, their common opponents, the results against their common opponents. But the one metric we had to fall back on, again, was the head-to-head. I charged the committee members to go back and watch that game again, the Miami-Notre Dame game, because it was so far back. And we got some interesting debate from our coaches on what that game looked like as we watched it. And with that in mind, we gave Miami the nod over Notre Dame into that 10 spot.
But Hunter, the way you guys go about ranking teams, you don't
I just don't. I don't like them going that way.
25 and everybody adds it up and do the math. I mean, the head-to-head, these teams had almost by mathematical definition had to be in the same group to be evaluated prior to this. I don't have a problem with the outcome. I'm asking about the process. So you're telling me that head-to-head never really came up until they were ranked side by side? That seems to be different from the process of ordering and ranking the teams that you guys go through.
Well, Reese, if you recall, Miami was a loser of 2 of 3 when they entered the poll at 18, and they were in close proximity to Louisville at the time, who I believe was below them in 21st or 22nd spot. And we didn't use the head-to-head metric to compare Miami and Louisville, a team who had beat Miami. But not until they really got in close proximity side by side with the move with BYU were we able to evaluate just those two teams side by side. We always had someone between them, whether it was previously Alabama and BYU, and then just BYU in the last week.
Okay, but I still need a little further explanation on why this matters, because they've been, it is accurate to say that at some point in this process prior to this weekend, that at least in the group of teams, the 6, and when you go to 4 and carry them over and all of that, that Miami and Notre Dame have been in the same group for evaluation. Is that correct?
That is correct, Reese.
Okay, and so why is it that they had to be ranked side by side with no one between them for the head-to-head to carry the day?
As I mentioned last week in last week's rankings, we thought Notre Dame was better than BYU and deserved to be ranked higher than BYU. We thought BYU deserved to be ranked higher than Miami, and that's the way that laid out. After the championship game in the Big 12 and the way BYU performed again against Texas Tech, we felt like Miami deserved to be ranked ahead of BYU. And then you had the direct head-to-head comparison of those teams, Miami and Notre Dame, sitting respectively at 10 and 11 in our poll.
Okay, Hunter, I appreciate your time. I know I've drilled down on this, but I have a couple more that I think are pretty important. What impact did the fact that there was potential that the ACC would not have a representative because Duke had 5 losses and they were the conference champion? What impact did that have on the discussion in the room when it came to Miami and Notre Dame, or just Miami's inclusion overall?
Reese, it had absolutely no impact. Our charge as a selection committee is to rank the top 25 teams, and then you peel out the 5 highest conference champions and the 7 at-large teams, and that's what we did to fill out that bracket. And Miami ended up being one of the 7th highest at-large teams, and that's why they're in the playoff.
Okay, as I said, I've got zero problem with
the ACC wasn't otherwise going to have a representative.
Yeah, I have no problem with the outcome. We're just talking process here. And so the same question about Alabama. I think Alabama pretty clearly had the best metrics,
we can't do the second comment. We can't do this.
However, they hadn't played well, and they did not play well in the conference championship game.
And
that was to Georgia's credit. Georgia.
Since I'm sitting over here talking to Riley on stream. So just an interesting point that the commissioner of the college football playoff just made. So they didn't penalize Alabama for getting blown out in the SEC championship game, but they penalized BYU for getting blown out in the Big 12 championship game. Here we go. There's no consistency. I think that what happened was the committee looked at the fact that they weren't going to get an ACC representation because the whole conference is shit. And they said, oh, group of 4 or power 4, we got to get a representation in there. So they just said, all right, whatever, screw Notre Dame. We're just going to we're going to drop BYU. We're going to jolt Miami all the way up 3 spots and put them in. It's just funny. Like, that's just hilarious. And by the way, commissioners just throwing literal turds at the wall, banging bricks together, not knowing how to answer any of these. All he had to say was, we think Miami's the better team. We put them ahead of Notre Dame. Because you can't drop BYU and not drop Alabama. Like, if you're saying you're not going to penalize teams for playing in a conference championship game, how in the hell are you going to penalize BYU for playing in a conference championship game? Makes no sense. We'll see. Banger game. Banger. Amazing game. I would love to watch that game. Awesome. Like, that would be one of that would probably be, hopefully we don't get like a crap off, but that would be a really fun game. That would be probably my favorite game of the year. That would be my national championship if I could pick it. But oh man, Notre Dame Twitter is just absolutely combusting right now. Oh my God. Oh man, the committee does it again. They just dug themselves into a deeper hole than what they already were in. They basically just said that they didn't even look at head to head. They just said that the BYU loss essentially dropped them 2 spots, which is just crazy. Like, I can't believe you're going to penalize Bama. You're not going to penalize Bama, but you're going to penalize BYU. I don't know. I don't really agree with that, but all right, well, it stinks. I'm going to go watch some NFL. Hopefully the Bears win today. I'm not going to really recap. I'm not going to preview the NFL today. I'll recap it next week on the podcast, since we really won't have any college football on. But UFC, that's what UFC. Praise to the good Lord, baby Jesus. The reign of Merab the Machine has come to a screeching halt. I think that there will be a rematch, but Piotr Jan, absolute masterclass last night. You want to talk about a dude just beating a guy in all forms of mixed martial arts. Piotr Jan looked like the old Piotr Jan that was champ, that should have never not been champ. And if you want to go hear probably the loudest hit I think I've ever heard, that wasn't like face to head or face to head, hand to head or foot to head, but just hand or foot to skin, go listen to Piotr Jan hit Merab with a liver shot in, like, I think it was the 3rd round. Oh my Lord, was it loud. Literal. I mean, it was disgusting. Let me see if I can find it real quick before I hop off here. Not going to really talk about the Von Pantoja thing. Pantoja literally just breaks his arm. Stinks, but and I don't think there will be a rematch anytime soon, because he's going to be out for a pretty long period of time. But I mean, it's like it was very interesting. Jan just had the perfect plan to beat him, and now you've got a giant. I saw a statistic today that every division in UFC men's has had a belt change this year. Kind of crazy, kind of wild. But yeah, Piotr Jan beats Merab, stuffs 38 takedowns. I know Merab said afterwards that he was trying to go for a more fun fight, blah, blah, blah. You still shot 38 takedowns, and Jan just stuffed all of them, besides 2. But yeah, so fun episode. Stings, whatever you want to say. Congratulations to all those teams. They all pretty much deserved it in my eyes. I'll I'll look back in this in 15 years and be like, what if? But I don't play the if game. That's the whole thing. I don't play the if game. I live in the present, and like Riley always tells me, if my grandma had wheels, she would be a bicycle. So not gonna play the if game. I'll put it out there right now. I think that the national championship will either be Texas Tech versus Georgia, or Indiana versus Georgia. I think I think Georgia is pretty much a shoo-in, unless some crazy things happen. But that's how I see it shaking out. Shout out of the week. Let's see. Who do I want to shout out? It's definitely not going to be Mother Nature, because no, snow is horrible. Stop it. Shout out of the week. Let's see. Oh, I got a good one. Speaking of Mr. Doc Goody, shout out of the week is to Mr. Unc Goody, who has been keeping me consistent with the gym. Shout out. Thank you, Doc. I know that you're approaching 40, but this 22-year-old over here says thank you. So I'll be back next week, recap the NFL. It'll be a short episode. There's not that many, won't be as many games with college football. Might recap some of college basketball, but I don't really like getting into that until the later stages of like December and January, when these games actually start to, where we see teams start playing conference play and stop playing kind of these like tournament money games. But yeah, so I appreciate this episode went way longer than what I expected. I figured that they would just announce it and then we'd roll right into hypotheticals. But once again, I don't play the F game. But yeah, so I appreciate everybody for hopping on here, spending an hour on their Sunday. Have a blessed Sunday. Have a blessed rest of your week. Please stay safe out there. But yeah, until next time, thanks for everybody joining. Go check out Southern Cut Barbecue and have a great rest of your week. Keep on keeping on.